Can I?
Yes.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How you doing this morning?
Good. How are you, Mr. Seals?
I can't complain, man. I'm enjoying myself. I'm at this place to where I was a teacher for 17 years at Lincoln High School. And I work with the autistic program. We're almost in the same program here because these people here need hands. So I'm able to share what I can do with them and help them. I'm holding my Olympic gold medal. Can you see that?
We sure can.
All right, that day, 1972, it's 50 years old. Today, it's 50 years old, and I still have it. I call it my American Express card. Never leave home without it. This is my mother. My mother bought a plane ticket 6 months before I even qualified to go to Munich. So she was already there. We won this together. And then the Virgin Islands sent my dad. So now what a family to do. This is a family heirloom. But without the works that I got out of Indiana and everywhere else, it wouldn't be like it is now. I just enjoy myself, man. And what can I say? Every day someone wants to hear my story. I have a story. And my story is that give, and give. Muhammad Ali said to me before he went home to heaven, he said, service to others is the rent we pay for our room in heaven. And that's what we do. That's what I do here. I give service. I help and I love people. Put that back in my head. But it's my pleasure. My pleasure to be here, to talk to you and to listen and understand what you have for me, because every word that comes, I'm able to work it out and put it in my vocabulary and carry it with me. God is good.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this morning, Mr. Seals.
Sure. You'd want to know things about me, so I can give you something. I boxed 19 years. I had 430 fights. I lost 19. I had over 200 knockouts, and I won that gold medal. My background is that my management we were spending the money before we paying the bills. So when it got at the end of the game, I'm legally blind, and I didn't have any money to spend on me. I ended up with $100,000 in eye bills. Now listen to this. My manager and I were driving down this freeway going to Portland, and we're asking ourselves, who can we get to help us pay this bill? $100,000. When we turned the radio on, the first words that came out the radio was the Candy Man can. Now, who's the Candy Man? Sammy Davis Jr. So we went on down to Vegas. He says, if you can do my boys this way, send them where they got to go when it's time, he'll come. Sammy Davis Jr. came to Tacoma Washington at the Tacoma Dome and performed. Muhammad Ali was there, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, Ray Boom Boom Nancy, and a bunch of, Rocky Lockridge, and a bunch of professional fighters came to pay homage to Sugar Ray Seals. When the concert was done, the $100,000 was gone. The shirt said, the Candy Man sings for sugar. Hey, man, bless that guy, man. God is good to send someone to me, for me, and to help me to move and to be where I am today. A giver. When I said I was a high school teacher for 17 years at Lincoln High School, I worked with the autistic program, autism. I didn't know anything about them. But I start to learn and I figure out what it is. If you're not there when you're supposed to, nothing good is going to happen. And I learned that at the bus stop. Be at the bus stop before the bus gets there, or else you're going to have problems. I helped a lot of people, man. My family was givers. My mother, she's in heaven, but she was a giver. I tell you something. She knew I was going to win the gold medal. She bought a plane ticket 6 months before, so she knew I was going to win the gold medal. And when she passed away, I was in Indianapolis. They called me and said, my mother's passed away. So I got as fast as I could to Tacoma. When I went up and I met my mother, she had 10 seconds. She had her last 10 seconds and she saved that for me. And the way she said it was, and that's it. I said, Mom, thank you. She held it.
Yeah.
She held her breath for me until I come from Indiana. And I said, Mom, thank you. Now she's in heaven. Now, you know, I just lost my brother.
She's not going to come here.
Yeah, I just lost my brother Sunday. The reason for us being here in Tacoma from the Virgin Islands was he had a bad eye. My uncle was in the military. He said the special doctors that could fix that eye. When we got here, it was too late for that. But he was the one that got us here in Tacoma, Washington, to give us the opportunity to do what we have done. Put Tacoma on the map, airport, in your eyes, Puyallup was Puyallup. You know, we didn't know anything how to pronounce names and whatever, you know, and that's what happened. Puyallup. Who is Puyallup? Puyallup. And then Tacoma. Who is at Tacoma? And then here what we did, we took it right outside from Seattle, because you had to ask you where Tacoma is from. We had to say right outside of Seattle. We don't say that anymore on the map. And that was a hard work, but we did what we could do from the downtown Tacoma Boys Club. And a few of our people passed away. Fletcher Jenkins was the first guy to open up the Boys Club so that we can put boxing in there. And you know, there's really no Boys Club. It's Boys and Girls Club, but we couldn't put the girls in there because we had to have our strength, everything that we need to go out there and do what we did. We sent 3 guys to 2 Olympics and come back with 2 gold medals. World champions.
Well, thank you very much for sharing with us this morning, Mr. Seals.
Yes.
And thank you so much for what you're doing at Shiloh Baptist right now. And I think I can speak for everybody here. We so appreciate you being here, and we hope that you soon have the housing set up that you would like. And in the meantime, that you're able to help folks here in Tacoma.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for. If you check, I've done everything to help, to give. I went to McCarver Junior High. That's when it was a junior high in the 60s. I graduated from Stadium High School. That's when it was Stadium. You know, now they call it Stadium. The way they do it. I moved to Fort Lewis Community. I went to Lakewood Community College. I spent 3 years there. And then I traveled all across the world. So I got experience to give back. And that's just what I'm doing.
Awesome.
Muhammad Ali again, he said, service to others is the rent we pay for our room in heaven. The Lord said, if we don't give, we don't get. And so that's where I'm at. I appreciate this being here. And thank you for wanting me to say a few words, because I do have a few.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for sharing your time with us this morning.
Yeah, I'm enjoying myself here. I don't mind sharing. I don't.
Great.
Because you're not going to get nothing if you don't share. If you don't get what you got, what you know, nothing is coming back.
Yep. All right, Mr. Seals, thank you. And we are going to get started with our meeting. You're more than welcome to continue attending if you want. All right, let's get started with our regular meeting. That was just a special treat to kick off today's meeting. And I know that may be a hard act to follow, Rosemary, but would you like to get us inspired further?
I thought, really, we probably should have made his message the message this morning, but I'll add to it. I really appreciate the power of stories and the power of the motion, the idea of service. Since we come here every week to conspire to create a community where everyone has access to housing and the resource to meet basic human needs. And each week we remember that we meet on the traditional homelands of the
you still there?
Who have
stewarded
these lands since the beginning of time and continue to do so today. We honor their voices, their experiences, and their histories. And today we come here from wherever we've already been today, exposed to the loud noises around the criminal indictment of our former president and the Supreme Court scandals and awareness of horrific continuing gun violence and lack of political will to address it, and unabating international conflict. And locally, in our world of homeless advocacy, we witness continuing sweeps and plans for more next week. And later next month, Lakewood will enforce a new ban on overnight camping within 15 miles of City Hall. There's much to make us tense and angry. And this week and this month, we hear a different message through the celebration of days marked as holy and as times for deep reflection. We have religious events such as the Jewish Passover and the Christian Easter. And this year, April also brings the Muslim Ramadan and Eid al-Fitr. And for those not connected to these spiritual traditions, the spring itself with new leaves and flowers can signal promise, possibility, and hope. These annual observances offer an antidote to tension, paralysis, and despair. And whatever sources of hope and possibility we find, I know I carry the tension of the difficult news and the traumatic housing crisis in my body. With my body growing older and feeling my age, I feel at the same time a continuing passion to work to make things better. I think Mr. Seals makes that point really strongly in his story. I often ignore the tension in my body, but I know the tension still weighs me down, tightens my neck and shoulders, leads to shallow breathing, and so affects the promise of my passion. While you may not be feeling tense or anxious today, or you may have a daily meditative practice that helps to center you, I bet a lot of us aren't paying very close attention to our less than helpful physical responses to the social and individual trauma we witness and try to address. We come here every week to learn about what's going on in our communities, to share resources, and to conspire for good. That word conspire is used most often in a negative way, literally as plotting or planning nefarious deeds. But the Latin verb conspirare literally means to breathe together. So I invite you to join me to conspire with me in a brief shared experience of breathing deeply together. I'll give you a couple instructions and it won't be long. If you want to join in this, try to sit comfortably, wherever you're sitting, try to sit comfortably and raise your rib cage to expand your chest. Put one hand on your chest and the other on your abdomen. Notice how your upper chest and abdomen are moving while you breathe, and concentrate on your breath and try to gently breathe in and out through your nose. Your upper chest and stomach should be still, allowing your diaphragm to work more efficiently with your abdomen rather than your chest. With each breath, encourage any tension in your body to slip away, breathing in and out, and in and out. And once you're breathing slowly and with your abdomen, sit quietly and appreciate the gift and possibilities of breath and life. Let's conspire together for a few more seconds. I hope that was helpful. I leave you today with a short poem that presents every day as a day to be born. As Mr. Seals says, a day to do service for others and to conspire in new ways. This is Birth Day by Lucille Clifton. Today we are possible. The morning green and laundry sweet opens itself and we enter, blind and mewling. Everything waits for us. The snow kingdom, sparkling and silent in its glacial cap, the cane fields, shining and sweet in the sun-drenched south. As the day arrives, with all its clumsy blessings, what we will become waits in us like an ache. Welcome to the conspiration. So just a couple things for everyone who's new. We have a set of norms for how we operate in this Zoom space, and they're pretty simple. We ask you to keep yourself on mute when you're not speaking, that you stop the video when you're doing activities that might be distracting, and that you use the raise hand function when you're asking to be recognized. We also use the chat as a place for conversation, introductions, information, questions that we don't get answered in the large group, or follow up things when we've used up some of the air space and we want to be sure other people have space too. So with that, we also ask at the beginning of our meetings for anyone who's joining us for the first time or returning from being away for a long time to note that they're here, and if they're associated with the group, to let us know that group. We don't ask for long introductions at this point at all, but if you have a group that you'd like to present to us that offers a service that could be useful to people who are in need, we have Teresa Paradritis often organizes that. You see her waving there, and she'll put her information in the chat. Be sure to contact her if you'd like to share your background or your group with us. So between me and Rob here, we should see if anyone is new that would like to say hello and let us know where you're from, so we can be sure to network well with you. Just raise your hand with the raised hand function if you can, and let us know you're here. Ketra. There you are.
Hi, sorry about that. Hi, my name is Ketra. I'm new to the meeting. I usually go to the Puyallup Homeless Coalition meetings on every second for Puyallup. You know, this is my first time at this particular meeting. So I work for DSHS. I'm a social service specialist and just wanted to say hi.
Well, Ketra, welcome. And now I know how to say your name too. Thank you. You see anybody else, Rob?
Not at the moment.
All right, well, be sure if you are new and you'd like to let us know something about yourself, use the chat to share that information, and we'll move on with the meeting.
All right. Thank you, Rosemary, as always, for helping set the tone. And again, thank you to Mr. Seals for setting the tone this morning as well. A real honor to have him here. So let's get started with the regular standing item that we do at the beginning of every week's meeting, and that is talk about what we're seeing happening on the street this week. So this is an opportunity for folks who are out in the community interacting with people who are homeless, to share changes that they're seeing, needs that they are realizing that need to be met. We've got 65 folks in this room, so the hope is that during this section of the meeting, if there's a need that somebody can help address, this is a way to kind of start making those connections so we can get the help to people that they need. It's also an opportunity to talk about where people are shifting to put things in context a bit. The city of Tacoma continues to enforce its camping ban. The city of Lakewood is about to start enforcing a camping ban. It's forcing people to move into different parts of the community where they may not have been before, and it's creating new needs. So let's pay attention to that, as well as what's happening within those buffer areas. And do we have concerns we need to raise? We've already, objected to a number of these policies at their heart, but this is an opportunity to see what we can do as individuals. So let's get started. Jessica, I see your hand.
So our team finally made our way over to the Union Loop. We, like I've said before, we don't go to Tacoma a whole lot, but we did get over there yesterday. Is somebody from the HEAL team here today? Do we know? I just have some questions because it seems like the people that are at that camp are on the list for the new Lakewood motel thing that's not open yet, but it kind of seems to me that it would make more sense for them to just leave it alone until the decision is made on that. So I just wanted some clarification if anybody is here that could clarify that.
HEAL team doesn't decide, they're ordered.
Thanks, Courtney. I do know Caleb's on the call. I don't know if he wants to address that directly now or later in the meeting.
I think just for clarification, the HEAL team wouldn't have that wait list specifically to that shelter because it's outside of the jurisdiction.
I'm not. I'm not talking, no, they're already, I've clarified they're already on the wait list. They're on, not on the wait list. They have a room. They just can't go into the room yet because the motel's not open.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you guys kind of sort that out in the background. I do know there's still maybe at some point during the meeting here today, Joe can offer some follow-up on that Lakewood Planning Commission meeting that took place on Wednesday and what the impacts of that are. But thanks for raising that question, Jessica, and let's move on to Verna.
I wanted to thank Caleb for coming over to 39th Street and doing a site visit to check out the end of a dead end road to see if there was any possibility of whether or not that might be able to be a safe parking site for about 4 cars. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And we're still at the information gathering stage, but it was really nice to have that just positive, supportive attitude. So thank you, Caleb.
Thank you, Verna and Sally.
There's a group of 12 to 15 people who are kind of persistently staying in the mid Hilltop area, 11th, MLKM, that area. They got swept again on Tuesday. We've been trying, with neighbors, have been trying to initiate some conversations with them about how they saw their housing options. And we've actually made a little bit of progress, but this morning everybody's so agitated that there was no opportunity to continue that conversation. What is needed is for somebody who has an iPad and access to coordinated entry to go up there and talk to those folks. They are not mobile. I mean, they're barely mobile because they have all their possessions in carts and grocery carts or whatever. They've got pets. There's just a lot of stuff. So they're not going to go to a coordinated entry physical location. They need somebody to come to them to make sure they're on the list and to have any other information they might need. So if anybody can respond to that, that would be great. We've not been successful in getting anybody to respond so far, but at least some of the people don't even know if they're on the list for sure. They thought they were, but then they weren't. And they're confused, they're agitated. They just need somebody to go there and kind of walk through that stuff with them if that's possible. Because the neighborhood people, we don't have access to any of that. We can't do it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for raising that concern, Sally. Jay.
So on the count of CE and going out, there isn't any program that's doing that. There are a couple of people that are looking at trying to start a program. One of them is the library. The problem that is CE is kind of stuck in a building and people are expected to go there. We are working on trying to figure out how to get people trained and out in the field for CE, because that is such an amazing necessity and would help us restructure how we look at homelessness if we can get on the ground input. So it's kind of a necessary step, but it's in the process. Coordinated entry is a certifiable program, so you must be certified and you must pertain to rules to work with CE. So it is something that has been brought up in the last couple of weeks that we need those services, and we're looking into how to do that. Also, this one is not particular homeless based. This is for everybody. I would really appreciate it if everybody looked up Fed Now. Fed Now is getting rid of paper money and going to a central banking system that is digitized. Doing this will severely harm our most vulnerable populations, in particular, are homeless. Please look into this and realize that it is life altering for every person who lives in the United States, and it is based on currency that China is currently using. This is vitally important to learn about now, because it changes our economic structure to a point where it really damages vulnerable individuals primarily. There's a video on it on fednow.org. There is a lot of information. You just have to search it up. Please do. Please, please, please do. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Others with items for things they're seeing on the streets. Trebuchets. Timothy, I can always count on you for a good chuckle. Even if you're serious. And there you go.
I'm sorry, I was just lost in reading the poem that Rosemary just posted, and I just came across the line, "What we will become waits in us like an ache." And I was somewhere else for a moment thinking about that. So what were you saying to me?
Oh, I was just commenting about chuckling at your trebuchets now.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else with something that they would like to share regarding what they're seeing on the streets? Well, as a reminder, go ahead and use the chat to share if there's additional information and coordination to be done around responding to issues on the streets. I also want to remind people that we do have the need and share spreadsheet that was started during the winter response, and that can continue even when we don't have inclement weather, to try to connect needs on the street with people who may have materials that can help fulfill those needs. So Jay, if you have an opportunity to pop that link into the chat, that would be great. I see your hands up, Jay.
So that has kind of been interesting. It's nice for everybody to see, hardly anybody knows how to use it. So for right now, let's utilize inclement weather listserv. And anytime that you have a need, a concern, you're low on something and you need to put a heads up so that we can supply it within the next month. Trends that you're seeing, something that's used more often than not, any numbers that you can send in. That way we have a permanent record on the listserv and we can pull that data at any time that we need to. And that way people aren't having to add it to a data sheet. We can do that for you guys currently. It's just vital because it's moving so fast, we can't keep it up to date on the data sheets is really the biggest problem. But if we have it centralized through the listserv, we can access that at any time and we can build a continuous data off of it, which is a lot easier for all of us. And once we see so many items going through at a certain time, we can create trends. And once we create trends, we can put in data numbers to Pierce County and to Tacoma, and we can start getting actual numbers of what we're using, what we're not, and what they need to support. So let's try to shift that to using the listserv if at all possible. If you feel applicable to using the data sheets, I'll go ahead and put those in the chat. But it would be helpful because I feel like that's a major block is people just are having a hard time accessing and using the data sheets. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. And if nothing else, the link to the data sheet is perfect for people to see what has been updated. So otherwise it'd be too hard to sort out on the listserv. So thank you for that. And let's move on to the next item on our agenda, and that is our community spotlight for this week. So I see David Thompson on screen from the Food is Free program. David, would you like to take the floor?
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name's David Thompson. I'm Director of Food is Free Tacoma. If you're not familiar with us, we grow food and give it away. What we have going on that I think everybody would be interested in is we have once a week, we have a food rescue that we do. It's about 10 pallets of fresh produce, rice and beans. We start that giveaway. It starts at 11 o'clock in the morning at Hope Point Church. That's at 6511 South C Street. That's the old Calvary Baptist Church that's over on 65th and Pacific Avenue. Our giveaway is actually on C Street in the auxiliary parking lot back behind it. You can't miss it. We we serve about 200 people in the first hour and a half. So stuff goes quickly. If you want to pick some up for your outreach, we'd be happy to give it to you before the lines start. So we got fresh produce, usually fruit, vegetables, rice and beans. The other thing we're doing is we're partnering up with with Auburn Humane Society and the Northwest Spay and Neuter Clinic. Northwest Spay and Neuter Clinic is over on 64th and Pacific Avenue. That's where you get your pets spayed. They also have a pet food bank there now. I don't know if people are aware of it, but there is a pet food bank there. They'll be partnering with us once a month to bring their pet food bank to our food rescue event. So once a month, you'll be able to come over there and get pet food for your pets as well. I'm not sure exactly which Monday or Tuesday that's going to happen on during the month, but we'll post it on our Facebook page when those are happening. The other thing we do is we grow food. We have garden beds all over Tacoma. You might have seen them before. We grow that food and give it away at our Fig Share Days. Fig stands for Food Independence Garden. We give those away on Tuesday or Wednesday evenings at 6 o'clock at local parks, and on Sundays at noon. So we go from noon to 3 on Sundays. We'll give away all this fresh homegrown produce that we grow and that we ask people that are growing in their own house to donate to us through our app, our partner Fresh Food Connect. They have an app that allows you to donate your homegrown produce right through the app. It'll come to us. We'll give it away on our Fig Share events. People get all kinds of free food. That's what we're about. We also do gleaning, so we'll pick fruit trees in the late summer. So if you have fruit trees or anything like that, feel free to sign them up with Harvest Pierce County Gleaning Project, and we'll come out and take a look at your trees too. That's about what I've got.
So Dave, what is the best website we can point folks to for Food is Free?
Foodisfreewashington.org.
Okay.
I'll put it in the.
Yeah, that would be great if you could do that. And anybody have any questions for David? All right. Actually, there, Jennifer, you have your hand up.
Sorry, I couldn't find the raise hand button. There were there still are a lot of tables around the city that are labeled Food is Free. Are those still connected with the Food is Free network? And if so, is there a map of them anywhere?
No, they're not. There's only just a few tables that were left. Most of those tables are just independent tables, so we're not affiliated with them. That was an idea that we started off with at first, to give away homegrown produce at the tables, and they developed into what they are today. But we don't have any authority over or control or anything.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, David, for sharing the information and for the work you're doing in the community. It makes a big difference.
Thank you.
Rosemary, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I'm sorry I didn't say this sooner, but I was wondering, David, if you have noticed, given the reduction in benefits that people have had and the demands on food banks, if you're getting more requests and how people might help you in that regard.
Yes, we are. We're seeing more people at our food rescue event. It's probably increased by about 30 to 40% the last month. So we're always, we always need volunteers. We need volunteer help all the time because we do so many different things around the city. There's lots of things to volunteer and do if you want to grow food or if you want to hand out food or anything else. You can sign up at our website. Once again, that's foodisfreewashington.org. We have a volunteer link there where you can sign up as a volunteer and put down what you like to do, and we'll try and match it up with something that you want to do and help the community.
Great, thank you very much. Great topic. And if others have questions, please go ahead and use the chat. Hopefully you can hang in for a few minutes, David, and see if there are any questions that pop up.
I sure can.
All right.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. So we're going to do something a little bit different this week. Well, as if this meeting already hasn't been a little bit different. Every meeting's a little bit different, but we're going to go ahead and build off of our review from last week's breakout conversation and go into kind of a little bit of a loosely guided exercise. But before we do that, I'd ask Timothy if you'd be willing to share your breakout review from last week. I'll put it on screen when you're ready.
Yes, please. I'm ready to go.
All right, let me get it up on the screen.
Okay. And I just threw it in the chat too, if people just want to grab it directly. So last week we talked about creative ways we can make statements in response to sweeps of places like the Union Loop. And this has been kind of an ongoing discussion. People are feeling frustrated about what's going on and want to break outside of our pattern of kind of usual responses to that. So this is an ongoing conversation. Some ideas that came up, I broke it down into categories that I saw to kind of lump it together, and that's organizing and witness, and shifting the narrative, and protest art ideas. So taking them in order, organizing and witness, people basically suggested various tools, a lot of them kind of, tried and true, and some of them that are more innovative. So those include marching in the streets, pushing for fair housing, showing up at the Union Loop sweep that is coming up, and helping people to understand what these sweeps look like and what they're really about. Flooding inboxes of the mayor and city council. This idea about going to public policy meetings, wearing emergency blankets in a sense of solidarity, focusing on lobbyists, ideas about billboards, buttons, motivating civic engagement by encouraging voting. And then there's this idea of flooding 211 with messages calling out harm. And then there's the category of shifting the narrative. And there are a lot of good ideas in here, documenting the expense of sweeps and how that could be alternately spent on more productive activity. Always be humanizing. There was a mention of Mark Horvath's Invisible People website, which I encourage people to take a look at if you don't know about. The more there are sweeps, the less trust there is. Just a sort of a statement of truth there. Working with encampments and homeless leadership, helping to develop positive media narratives, focusing on opportunities for socialization, which is always transformative. An idea about a rapid response group to respond to negative social media comments on various articles and stuff. And some more ideas about directly responding to the next sweep coming up. Protest art ideas, large messages that can be seen from the street. Personally, this morning I was online shopping for a heart flag. All of the options that I found were unsatisfactory, started to report. Ghost tents, kind of a cool idea that would take some execution. Farm tool based art. Maybe there's somebody out there that can explain in the chat what the heck that means. This really cool idea of clear paint that only shows up in its message in the rain. I cannot think of a more Pacific Northwest protest tool. And farmers market booths, Banksy-like stencil, various public space art ideas. So a lot of food for thought there. And again, an ongoing discussion here. And it's followed by the notes and resources. As always, if people have links that they want to see put in that, just drop them in the chat, and that's what's going to happen.
Awesome. Thank you, Timothy. So again, the idea is that we're going to build on this a little bit, and Dana is going to lead us in facilitating the next 15 minutes or so to kind of talk about, are there some of these ideas that people are coalescing around? And I'll hand it over to you, Dana.
Thank you, Rob. And Timothy too, for your summaries, always so valuable to have that. Yes, you know, I've been coming to the coalition meetings for a couple of years now, and as Timothy said, and it seems there's a sense of increasing energy for action, you know, inspired by these horrific sweeps that keep going on, these camping bans that are continue to pop up. So what we wanted to do is explore this sense a little bit, because it is just that. And if it is there, some desire, I think in the poem, is there an ache for what will we become? If that is there, as a coalition with our mission being to connect and mobilize to take action, we wanted to facilitate some connection around maybe some of these ideas that Timothy just went through. So, you know, each of you are doing so much already for the unhoused community, every day doing so much. And many of you have taken unique actions already outside of your everyday. So yeah, it feels like maybe there's still such a need. I guess what I first want to kind of test, and this is all just an experiment and a test here, is a quick maybe raise of hands or show in the chat. Do you too feel this kind of increasing need to act, to do something as a coalition outside of, I know what we already do, because you do so much, you know? Is there this ache? I see some hands or yeses in the chat. I know I feel it. I know I feel it too. So let's see if we can try to connect each other, connect us around interests that we might have, and use this document that Timothy said, talked about. So a couple ideas I have. If there are specific ideas that Timothy mentioned or that you saw in the summary, if you've read it already, that you want to act on, that really resonate with you, put those in the chat is one thing we could do. And I encourage you to do that. Another way being that maybe not everybody listened to the summary with intention to keep it in your brain. I know I like to read things to keep things in my brain. So in my mind, I kind of categorized Timothy's categories a little bit. So in addition to maybe specific actions that you want to do in the chat, I saw in Timothy's summary 4 areas of action: writing, media, art, and showing up, you know, just kind of being a group. So writing things like, you know, flooding the inboxes of the Mayor and City Council Weekly was listed. Writing and like sharing real life examples of why folks are homeless and humanizing them by sharing the impact. Responding to comments made in TNT articles with you know, responding to the negative comments, because there's always so many to that. Responding with positive comments. Writing includes things like that. Art, you know, big banners we heard, farm tool art we heard, paint we heard, things like that. Media, showing up, taking video, getting interviews was mentioned. And showing up is, you know, things like marches was mentioned, maybe involved to another activity that's going on, showing up the union loop, that kind of thing. So Rosemary, you have your hands up. Help me out. What do you think?
This is just a quick observation. I noted that Courtney put it in the chat too, that
thank you.
This is a sort of a place where we want people to be really honest and perhaps say things they might regret later as a YouTube video is out in the world, that we might take some of this conversation, which if we have it on the screen, at least off recording for a bit of time when we do begin to talk about ideas. I don't know how we do that, but I just wanted to acknowledge it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
I'll need help looking at the chat.
Yeah, I don't believe that we can stop the recording and restart it. However, we can edit what gets put up on YouTube. But what I commented in the chat too is, yeah, Courtney brought up a good point that, and I was starting to put in the chat as well, that if and when we coalesce around 2 or 3 ideas, if it comes to actual strategy, my thought was that this conversation could just see where we're coalescing and not to be direct planning for what is to happen either at Union Loop or any other site, that we meet elsewhere for that level of planning. But I think it's more about, are people kind of coalescing around ideas? And, you know, this is a public space, as Kenny mentioned, Kenny Coble, appreciate you offering to step away. There's no need to step away. This is still a welcoming space for everybody. Yeah, it may feel a little bit awkward because we're talking about actions that could be awkward for all sides, but we're all adults here. We're all in this meeting because we feel we want to make a positive impact on homelessness and end homelessness in our community. So there's just a bit of trust that's involved in this higher level piece of it. And if we need to have separate meetings around specific tactics, then we can do that elsewhere.
Yeah, and real quick, and then Jay, I see your hand, and I don't know if Teresa, you had your hand up. Yeah, to that point, let me jump and clarify. My intention was simply to see some things in the chat, have some people write some things in the chat. Hopefully that does feel comfortable. So thank you for pointing that out. And then, yes, I would gather, you know, those people who coalesced around a particular interest and try to connect you via email with each other to see then if you want to take it to the next step, to explore, is this what I want to do? How would this look like? But to chat together as groups, and there may be more than one thing that we have an interest in. You know, it only takes 2, really. 3 can start a movement, right? So if there's a couple people that are interested in one thing, to connect outside of this meeting today, but get that information so that we can connect you via email. Does that make sense? Jay, you wanna?
We live in a time ruled by fear. And in a time ruled by fear, we inherently will hide the most necessary actions for self-protection. This is not a time to hide. This is not a time to shame. This is not a time to stop what we're doing and fear the things we're losing. We are losing our democracy. We are losing our free right and our free wills. And we are losing the war against homelessness because of people's greed. At a certain point, yes, strategic planning needs to happen behind doors, but up to then we need to stand around with each other and go, hey, who's willing to talk? Who's willing to do things? Are we done? If we aren't willing to have 1 or 2 people that are willing to stand up and say, hey, action must be done, then nobody else will do it because we are a community. And so therefore there must be a leader in some form of action. All this is a call to action. So listen and heed. This is a call to action. Who wants to do what? We will plan strategically behind doors, but if nobody says something first, we can't answer it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay, very much. So, like I say, my thought was in the chat, and if there's other thoughts of how we might like get some initial group interest, please chime in. I really appreciate it. But my thought is put in the chat if there's a particular idea that you have that you want to work around. If not, if there's writing you're interested in, art, showing up, or media, if one of those 4 things are of interest, just put one of those 4 words in the chat and we can group you around that particular interest, skill level, whatever it is. Or if it's just that, yeah, I want to do something, put a yes. And then I'll take that chat information and
So I see
go from there.
Rosemary has suggested she likes the idea of sponsoring a billboard. So that's one idea.
Awesome. Thank you for for saying something. And yeah.
And there's very active chat, so appreciate
That's
it.
great. That's great. That's what it's.
Thank you,
what it's there
Rachel.
for.
Teresa?
Just because it takes me a long time to type anything, I wanted to invite anybody who is interested in the stuff about billboards or getting some mailings out, getting some artwork from within the campsites that we can promote in one way or another. That's all stuff we're talking about at the Wednesday morning meeting at 11 a.m. So that link is on the on our website. If you want to drop in, it's not a commitment. You don't have to keep coming to meetings until the end of time. You can just drop in and say, hey, I'm interested in doing one of these things. So all are welcome.
Yeah, and I'll put my information in the chat if people just want to reach out to me, and like instead of the listserv or anything else, and then you can certainly share interest with me. And again, we'll try to coalesce those and find a couple people. I don't, yeah. And again, thanks for helping me with the chat, because I don't know how you all do it, talking, looking at the chat, writing.
It helps if your brain can be in multiple places at once.
Yeah, I guess my
Some days it's better than others.
My brain is not doing that.
Did anybody else have specific ideas that they were interested in pursuing? And I know that don't put it in the chat if you're concerned about sharing it, but. Jay?
I have been working on pocket projects, and pocket projects is to the point where we can do 10 kits of 5 different types of projects in varying degrees. So I am very glad to say we're at the point where we can start putting those together. And we have one community source that may be willing to showcase some of our work. So it is well on its way, and anybody could, if you're interested or would like to contribute, I'd appreciate it. It is crafts of varying levels for people to learn how to do them, that we're trading new crafts or a little bit of money. And that way they can build a skill. And then once they get to a point where they're really competent in that skill, we can work with them and talk about how money is made, how things are done, and how to get out of a system that's keeping them in that place, because there's a lot of fear. And it just gives you a lot of confidence and freedom to do things that you wouldn't do before then. Thank you.
And Mark?
Yeah, let me unmute myself, or I am unmuted. I just had a quick question. Is anyone documenting via video the actual sweeps taking place each sweep, so we can, show the degrading, ugly aspect of the sweeps, so that we can kind of, show, what's going on, and maybe follow, one of the, or several of the individuals that are impacted by the sweep, to show how the sweep has separated them from their families, from their street families, from their, is that going on yet? Or is that something that might be an option?
So I think it's a little spotty. I know that I see you waving your hand, Jan. I also know Richard's involved in helping witness and document sweeps. But Jan, since you were frantically waving your hand, I'll let you respond.
Thank you.
I'm hoping to do a video on this sweep and other sweeps. Do not show faces unless they're publicly facing faces, like government officials or anybody that gives you permission, written permission. Hoping to collect stories. We have an editor, Richard Dorset, and I know a great editor who is willing to take any contributions. And the purpose of this particular video will be for the public health perspective of the impact of sweeps on health. And in order to have a public health perspective, you have to aggregate data. So this would be a visual with any kind of testimony, get quotes on the impact of sweeps on a person's lifestyle and in particular their health impacts. So I know this is a narrow focus, but to me, if you look at demographics of any particular place, the better the demographics, the healthier the people, the healthier the better the society. So we know that homelessness, chronic homelessness can afford somebody to lose 20 years of their life. So this is the kind of stuff that's grassroots, and I really would appreciate stills or video or anything having to do with Tuesday's event. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jan, and thanks, Mark, for the question. Yeah, we were talking earlier about the Invisible People site that documents the stories of people who are living homeless across the country and around the world. And it's I think something similar here would be a real blessing for this effort. It doesn't exist yet, but there is an interest.
Well, I see lots of, yes, comments and emails and ideas in the chat, and thank you. And thank you for the courage to step out into a little bit of the unknown and to maybe outside of the comfort zone. You know, never a time other than now, right? And with this coalescing and mobilizing to connect and act, you know, we'll get this movement even go on even stronger. So thank you. I'll follow up with all these ideas, and we'll see what happens. Stepping into the abyss together. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana, and thank you for being willing to lead what we knew was going to be a interesting portion of today's meeting. So appreciate everyone as we stumble through. But
yes,
you know, when we're taking action, when we're planning to take action, there's going to be awkwardness, whether it's in this public setting or in smaller meetings. So appreciate everyone's patience.
yes, thank you.
All right, so let's shift back to some more standard fodder for these meetings. And I love that the chat is still flowing so strong. Keep the conversation going there as well. I wanted to just briefly encourage folks to attend, if you have the time, attend today's meeting of the Implementation Advisory Board for the Pierce County Comprehensive Plan to End Homelessness. If they could have made that name longer, I'm sure they would have done it, but it doesn't roll off the tongue. The meeting happens on Zoom. Anyone is welcome to attend. I will drop you can find the link on this page on the Pierce County website, which is the overall page for the Comprehensive Plan to End Homelessness. The reason that I thought it would be good to remind folks that if you have the time and can attend, it would be good, is that one, there's two primary topics that will be covered today. One is the update on proposed uses for the dollars from ARPA funds that are being used to move comprehensive plan goals forward. And so there's a good slide deck that's going to be shared by John Barbie and team as the Pierce County Human Services team shares the status of those dollars being spent, timelines of projects going forward, etc. And it also includes information about budget expectations in the current budget and dollars that are expected to come in through essentially 2025. So please do attend. There's always the opportunity during this meeting. Well, actually, the second thing that's going to be talked about during the meeting is Rodney Robinson from the Continuum of Care is going to come talk about the COC as well. And so again, 1 to 3 this afternoon. Usually toward the end of the meeting, there's an opportunity for public comment. And I know some folks in this room, Sally in particular, frequently make public comment at these meetings. So you can join Sally in doing that. And I was going to bring up some slides on screen, but I think I'll just urge folks to watch the presentation this afternoon, since I'm looking at our time and we're kind of at time. Courtney, is there anything that you would add from your perspective for today's advisory board meeting?
No, I just like a little repeat of what I said last week, which was Sally Perkins comes every time and makes public comment every time and often calls out a lack of anti-racism. And I just want to encourage everybody again to be a Sally.
What we need is more Freds and Sallys in this conversation. Yeah. All right. So let's shift over to talk about government updates. And Caleb, do you have anything you wanted to share from the city of Tacoma today?
Just a few things. A couple of updates on our shelter projects right now with Holy Rosary. We're still working with the provider. Catholic Community Services' main barrier is to make sure that they are all staffed up before they run the site. And so we've been in communication with them just to see how we can support them with that. But that's kind of the final piece of opening up that site. It's a good reminder. I always like to say that setting up shelter is a three-legged stool. It's a capable provider, it's a location, and it's funding. And so we just want to be able to make sure we emphasize capable providers, because we truly appreciate all our providers that are doing shelters. It's a big step. And to the three-legged, it's usually the hardest one often, because it does take a lot in order to get to that capability. And so we appreciate Catholic Community Services work on that they've been doing to try to make sure that they are staffed up, that they can operate this site, that they feel comfortable doing this shelter, so that we can also support them. And then the other one is 23rd and MLK, Brotherhood Rise, across the street from the Rise Center. The Brotherhood Rise is working on finishing up those micro shelters as that last step. And I think that would be the final piece in order to have those individuals transition into that shelter location. So we continue to work with them too as well, any way we can to help them finish that project. With the safe parking checklist that Jeffrey has been working with us on, it is in its final steps now with media and communications on the design component. It will be reviewed by the city manager and the director of neighborhood and community services for one last step before we send it out. I'm sure many of you have been talking to Jeffrey. He is very aware nothing has changed since our discussion on that checklist. So if he would like to share some of the details, he's more than welcome to, on what we're hoping that we can do to help support churches as they think about safe parking as another option, along with individuals that are sleeping in their vehicles. And then the last one is safe parking. You know, Verna brought up a really interesting idea around safe parking with public right-of-way spaces to see if we can implement some of that with our individuals who are unsheltered or sheltered through their cars, I guess is more accurate saying, as just another opportunity to support those folks. And so that is a very unique and new opportunity. There is a lot to consider. And I do appreciate Verna's call out saying that this is really information gathering for them, because it is also for us to really understand how we as a city can support that. What are the challenges we face both internally and externally? And we are hoping to see some progress on that soon. So that's kind of the biggest stuff around sheltering and safe parking that I can share now.
Thanks,
and Teresa,
Caleb.
I see your hand up.
Yeah, Teresa.
So thank you, Caleb. I would really appreciate it if you could send that draft to Jan, and you put draft all over it, it's fine, but the Monday group, it'd be great for us to be able to give you some feedback on it before it goes into the final stages, because most of us haven't seen it. So it'd be great to, you might have assumed that Jeffrey was sharing it with us, but he's talked about it, but we haven't seen it. So I'd like to lay eyes on it. If you send it to Jan, she can get it out to the Monday group, and it won't go out to the whole coalition if that's something you're concerned about, people thinking that it's in cement before it is. And hopefully it's not in cement, because we haven't even seen it. I also want to bring up, it's concerning to me that some people in the city keep talking about safe parking as shelter. And I don't know what the thinking is behind that, but safe parking is a very distinct thing from shelters and not meant to be regulated anything like shelters. So when terms like shelter-like or shelter come up, this is just people who are in vehicle homes having a safe place to park. We are not providing shelter. We're providing a safe place for people to park. And I don't know, that's part of why I'm anxious to see what the document says, because it should not be regulated at all in the same way that other shelters are. And we do not want to see a buffer zone around safe parking sites. So if that's in the works, can you speak to that?
Yeah, so Teresa, I think what you're getting to is the true definition of safe parking, as an example, is not necessarily Holy Rosary, right? That is more in line with our emergency sheltering, because we have 24-hour oversight. We have case management services on site at more regular hours. We have hygiene, bathrooms at a fixed location. We bring all of that in, very similar to our emergency shelter sites. So in terms of, I've heard this from Jeffrey and other folks too as well, is that that site is not particularly what is called the safe parking model. The checklist is actually probably more in line, I would say, and Jeffrey might be able to speak more to this as well, of more in line with the safe parking model as the example of just having a safe place for individuals to park. So I think that checklist would probably be more in line, I think, what you're saying, Teresa, in terms of what is actually the safe parking model. So I definitely understand that as well. The safe parking location for Catholic Community Services, and they'll get to be able to talk more about their program, is not necessarily similar to, this is a different model individuals can take advantage of. It is that individuals do not want to take or cannot take advantage of the traditional models of sheltering, but they have a vehicle that they would prefer to shelter in. And so that's why Holy Rosary is built that way. And so, but we also did community outreach, as you're aware of. We did the very similar process that we do for our emergency shelters. We do make promises to both the community, the provider, and the individuals that are on site on how we are going to have a safe and hopefully a way to have a productive site. And so that's why we built it that way, just by the comfortability of what the city has done historically.
Well, my hope is that if other safe parking sites choose to offer really robust services, that they won't suddenly be categorized as something other than safe parking. So it's a little bit of a slippery slope. And I don't know if you really answered my question. A safe parking site set up in that way, do you plan to have a buffer zone around it?
If on that checklist, yeah, so I can't speak to the ordinance because I on the policy part, but what I could say is that if they go to that checklist and they determine they want to do things that are in line with the temporary permitting code, that they would have to permit through that process. And so that checklist lays that out on what that would require that they would have to do for a temporary code. So that would be, so to your question, yes, if they do bring more robust services, that would indicate a temporary code permitting. They call it a—
oh dear. We want people to get help, Caleb. We really want people to get help, and we do not want to make it harder for churches to offer this. So I think we need to, I'm sorry, I know I'm taking up space, but I'm hoping you will come to our Monday meeting and have a further conversation with us. Thank you.
And Jay, I see you have your hand up.
So I'm going to summarize everything you said, how I hear it, and tell me that we are getting assistance in helping people. because we would like to offer people the chance to clean themselves and have access to services while they live in their car, which can be perceived as a separate action from parking in a location, you are going to somewhat build a structure that will penalize and or benefit any group in the categories of safe parking versus shelter by a checklist of needs that want to be provided.
So I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, Jay, but what I would say is as part of the safe parking, they will have opportunity to still get some of those services as that safe parking model. So, but in the Holy Rosary, they will have access to all of those services.
Okay, so because Holy Rosary is a shelter and has many other services, they will be categorized differently from the safe parking program. But anybody else outside of Holy Rosary, let's say a church who opens a safe parking program, but also gives those people accesses to shower and otherwise, and goes down that list and knocks off 50% of it, will then be categorized as a shelter because of those lists.
So if they go to the robust and they check off certain indicators that would require them to be a temporary shelter, they would be a temporary shelter, identified as a temporary shelter.
Is there any way that you could bring that checklist so that we can see each item and how it stacks against what services we're allowed to provide before it becomes endangering to safe parking as safe parking?
Yeah, and that was requested, I think, just a second ago, and I can definitely share that with that Monday crew to go over it as well.
Okay, because I feel like what was requested was a plan and what you have in writing and what is associated with Holy Rosary. And what I'm asking for is what you're going to use as a checklist against any other beginning project within Tacoma that starts as safe sites, but would like to provide adequate assistance. So they're two separate things. One is what you're pertaining to Holy Rosary. The other one is anything you might use in the future to judge the status of another site.
So Holy Rosary is a temporary shelter. It is outright permitted based on its location within the city. So they didn't have to go through a specific checklist in order to be a temporary shelter. And I can go over those details in that meeting. But like Altimer and Bethlehem and Shiloh, as just reminded, those are temporary shelters. They're not permanent shelters because they're under a temporary permit, but they're not emergency because we go through a different process for emergency sheltering. So that's why I think there's kind of 3 different types and 3 different processes. So not anybody. So if somebody wanted to open up their home and do a sheltering, right? We would want to, as a city, to be able to help and support individuals that are staying in there, that they have adequate services, including hygiene, showers, bathrooms, and stuff like that, so that they can open up a temporary shelter, and they would go through that process. And that is to protect individuals that are staying there and the community around it, because there's an expectation that the community has when they move into places of what that would look like. And so they get an opportunity to speak about their experience if a shelter was going to open up in their neighborhood.
Well, thank you, Caleb. There's a lot of layers to this, and look forward to you joining the meeting on Monday so we can kind of dig into the details more. All right, so let's see. Do we have anybody from Pierce County Human Services who would like to offer an update?
I don't see anyone on here from homeless.
Yeah. Did you want to offer anything about rental assistance, Valerie?
Sure, I can take a minute. So I'm Valerie Almany, formerly Knight, Pierce County Human Services. I'm the lead staff on the rental assistance and eviction prevention program out here on the KP. So we have a couple things. The eviction prevention program is open. The application is online, and I'm happy. I'll put that link in the chat just so everyone has access to it. Second, we are getting ready to release a new notice of funding availability, or an RFP, request for proposal, for prevention dollars. That program will be specific to really a wide range of what you consider prevention. It can be doubled up households, McKinney-Vento households. It can be folks coming out of foster care systems or systematic structures, any of those things. So whatever you identify in the community as a need, it will be an eligible activity under a prevention clause. So expect that notice of funding to come out here in the next couple of weeks. You'll have about a month to reply. And then funding will start sometime between July and January, depending on when the provider is ready to go. It is up to 2 years, $2 million American Rescue Plan funds. And then last, there's a lot of changes coming to our friends over at Dispute Resolution Center. So while we've been having this meeting, we've been chatting on through email. And the first week of May, we're going to host a landlord-tenant seminar, webinar, whatever you want to call it, to really get information out there about what those changes look like regarding payment plans and the Dispute Resolution Center role and mediation and all of the massive things that are now coming down because of the declaration of emergency has ended. So I will make sure this group also has that link as soon as I can get it scheduled with our partners over at Tacoma Pro Bono and the Dispute Resolution Center. And I'm sorry, no one from Homelessness is here.
No, that's not on you. And we are going to try to get the Dispute Resolution Center to get someone to come talk with the coalition at an upcoming Friday meeting as well. So
perfect.
Thanks for planting that seed, Valerie.
Absolutely.
All right. Updates from the Tacoma Pierce County department, her health department.
Yes, hi. So Jenny is not here today, so you're stuck with me. I'm so sorry for your loss. But I have a couple updates. So the first update that is most important probably is that we have a new RFP. So RFP stands for request for a proposal. It's basically just an informal contract. Well, it's not an informal contract. It is a formal contract, but it's an informal request because we're asking providers in the area who are interested in some money to help plan for inclement weather to submit a proposal. And that proposal can go to Adam. And that proposal outlines if you were given this amount of money, what would you do to plan for inclement weather? The processes around it are a little bit hazy as far as my mind, but there's multiple stages. So once you pass the first threshold or the first phase, you receive some money. And then once you pass the next threshold, you receive some more money and so on and so forth. I'm not familiar on the whole process. I didn't write the RFP guidelines, but if you have questions about that, Adam would be a great resource. He's the brains behind the operation. I'm just the face, but I can put more information in the chat as well and make sure that people have Adam's email. So if you or your providers or your orgs want to submit a request, you just email that to Adam and offers a chance for you to help plan out for inclement weather planning. So that's the biggest update from environmental health. Jenny is not here, obviously, so she has some updates. So we do send out a Gov delivery every month. It used to be bi-monthly, but we've done to once a month. For folks that are not on that, please let me know and we can go ahead and add you. Yes, Jan, I can ask Adam if he can come next week and talk about it. But yes, anyway, for the Gov delivery. So we do the Gov delivery every month. Jenny is not here right now, but that should go out next week. If you are not on that, please let me know and we can go ahead and add you. Just a general update about what we're doing at TPCHG, some community resources, community events, that kind of a thing. We also are still offering COVID-19 vaccinations for shelter sites. So if you would like that, you can contact Jenny or you can contact our EPI team or you can let me know and we can go ahead and reach out to you. So we are doing that through, I believe, at least through May. So shelter vaccinations, the RFP, and of course the Gov delivery. So if anyone has any questions for me, I will still be here, but those are the three major updates on my end.
Thank you, Isaiah. Good to have you here. All right. So let's see, next up on the list is advocacy updates, and I'll be pretty brief here. I just wanted to provide quick overview at the city of Tacoma level, and I'll let Sally correct me if I'm wrong on this, which I could be. There's nothing related to our particular issues on the study session agenda this coming Tuesday. However, on Tuesday night, there is an opportunity to participate in the community forum that takes place. And so that's an opportunity for you to get up and talk to the city council about anything that the city has purview over, including sweeps, including the response to homelessness, including the multifamily tax credit, tax exemption votes that they will take during that particular meeting. Although actually, if it happens during the meeting, I think you have to do that during a separate comment period. But anyway, Tuesday night is an opportunity if you want to let your city council know about your thoughts regarding sweeps and what's being done to people. It's a great opportunity to do that. At the county level, again, the county puts out its agenda for next week soon, but it's not out on Friday morning. Sally, are you aware of anything that's coming up in the next week?
I'm not sure it's next week, but it's coming up in the next couple of weeks. I think the Public Safety Committee at the county is going to hear a report on the jail. And there's a couple of issues there for us in terms of people being released from the jail if they don't have housing to go to. There's a continued dire shortage of correction officers. It's worse than the shortage of law enforcement officers. So if you're interested in what's going on at the jail, that might be a good committee meeting to watch. Patty Jackson will be doing the report.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. And at the state level, things are going to get pretty heated over the next couple of weeks. So after today, there will be just 2 weeks left in the current legislative session. Next week, at the end of the week, is the final cutoff for any bills to be approved and by both chambers. There are still bills that the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance that I work for is advocating for, and still advocating for changes to the especially the operating budgets on both the House and Senate side. The legislative session wraps up on April 23rd. One thing I will share is that it seems you'll remember going into session, or you may remember, that there was a lot of focus on housing and affordable housing. And all the way back in December, the governor proposed doing a $4 billion, essentially a referendum that would allow the state to borrow against expand its borrowing capacity and do bonding for an additional $4 billion to help address the affordable housing gap across the state. That effort seems to be on life support right now. It doesn't seem to have much traction that the governor's push for that level of funding for housing is going to move forward. So that's something that we'll be keeping an eye on over these last couple of weeks of the session. I think I shared last week, there is good news in the capital budgets in terms of the amount of money that the state is proposing to spend to put toward the Housing Trust Fund. So that is good. And but there's still issues around things like backfilling the funding from document recording fee revenues that help fund homeless services across the state. Those are not funded at a level right now that would allow the current level of services to be sustainable throughout the next year. So if you have an interest in learning more about the status of things in the last 2 weeks of the session, I urge you to join me this afternoon at 2 o'clock during our weekly advocate call. I know this is at the same dang time as the implementation advisory board meeting for the Pierce County Comprehensive Plan to End Homelessness. I have to split my time between the two. So, but if you do have an interest and want to follow what's happening at the state level, that's a great opportunity. So that is that. Excuse me. And we thought we would still have a breakout conversation today, even though we had that 15 minutes we spent around planning a response to sweeps. So the idea that came from Jay, which I think is a good one, and it ties right in with the comprehensive plan to end homelessness, is let's have a conversation for the next 10 minutes in small breakout rooms about what kinds of data that you believe would be helpful for the county to provide on a Pierce County dashboard related to homelessness. I don't know if you spent any time on the Pierce County website and looked at their data that's available currently. But there's an opportunity to let our partners at the county know what kinds of information would be helpful to show how our efforts to end homelessness are going. I don't think that there's enough clear guidance on what we would want to see right now. And then clearly what's been provided so far doesn't meet the basic needs. I know Sally and I have been having some conversations. Number of other folks have been having conversations about what's provided there and what isn't provided there. So we thought it'd be an opportunity to, while we get to know each other in the small breakout rooms, just offer what are the key data points that you think would be important to see on a dashboard. So I'm going to send us into breakouts for just 10 minutes. And as always, please have someone in your breakout room take some notes. I know this one's a bit wonky and not everybody's going to have a heck of a lot of insight, but I bet you have some particular pieces of data that you think would be helpful to understand that could be on a public facing dashboard online. So let's
be sure to save the chat.
Yeah, that's a good reminder to save the chat. And then Teresa, you asked a good question about looking at data. Boy, this is where things get messy. So yes, we could look at data, but it's going to take me some time to bring it up on screen because I wasn't prepared to do that.
I'm sorry that I didn't think of it earlier, but it would be good for people to know what's there so they don't suggest things that are already available.
So Sally, do you want to fill in the background here a little bit while I find the page?
At least what's on the open Pierce County that I was looking at was there were only about 4 metrics, and sometimes they were presented in percentages and not in whole numbers also. So you couldn't tell whether 23% is 5 or 23% is 200. So I had some struggles with just trying to interpret what the data are. There's some good information backing it up that explains how they got to it, but it was for the actual data that was presented, it was hard. I found it was hard to interpret. Then you also you can click on different ways to slice it. So you can say, okay, I want to look at it by geography. I want to look at it by race. I want to look at it by whatever. But every time you slice, that's all you see is the slice you clicked on, right? So trying to look at a comprehensive view of it, that's the drawback of the interactive data is you can't get an overall. So
yeah. So I do have the page on screen, and it's hard to do just a quick overview of it. It does go into, you can adjust, as Sally says, and look at the data in different ways. You can toggle and get different charts. As Lavada says in the chat, analysis skills are needed.
What the county has done is downloaded the need to do the analysis to the community. They should be interpreting this and telling us what they think it means, but they're not. And nobody else who does this type of data display does that either. I mean, that's the Tacoma Public Schools game. They've been doing it for years. So if you're a data geek, you have to do your own analysis to find out what's going on with this data.
Yeah. So, there is information here. It's just like Sally has said, you got to dig in, you got to look at the different charts in different ways. And who's the audience that this is intended for? Yeah, it's not for the general public. It's for the data geeks for sure. So this just very briefly gives you an overview of some of the things that exist. You'll see here in the coming soon section the things that the data team have been expecting to add. The winter 2022, I don't think is live yet. What doesn't really exist here is some of the story that we have told during meetings about the inflows and outflows of people to homelessness and in and out of HIMIS. As our friend Garrett has always said, you know, we have about 2,000 people getting housed every year, but there's, you know, this data is a little bit old, but typically around 200 people a month who are new, who touch the HIMIS system every month. So essentially 2,000 people becoming housed and 2,400 people becoming homeless throughout a particular year. So this gives you an idea of what exists. It's not, sorry for the short overview, but it should give us enough information to kind of say, okay, this is what exists. What do we really need to be useful and accessible? Yeah, also, where's the donate here button? So I'm going to go ahead and send us into breakout rooms for about 10 minutes. And please, someone take some notes, and we will be back here at 10:40 to resume the regular chaos. Welcome back, everybody, from the breakouts. Jumped right into this conversation. So as a reminder, please do paste your notes from the chat. I know that was a shorter than usual breakout, and it was probably a wonkier than usual topic for us to dig into. But I appreciate, especially Teresa, your suggestion that we take the time to take a look at what exists now on the county website so that we can compare and contrast and have a little more informed conversation about what's needed. So I was going to try to set it up so that we really could be distracted with me saying something outlandish as everybody came back. That did not work today. Next time. So let's move on. Real quick, Joe Perva, are you still on the call, and do you have a moment that you could share what happened at the Wednesday Planning Commission meeting? And if you're talking, Joe, you're muted. You may have stepped away.
No, I'm here. I apologize. I'm driving at the same time, so I apologize for that. I was like, oh man, not illegally do this while I legally do this. So I pulled over.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry, what was the question?
So I just wanted to get a perception from you regarding the Wednesday meeting in Lakewood with the Planning Commission and how that went.
So yeah, I was not the one that went to that. John Brown, my program manager, actually went to that one.
Okay.
We're still making to that. I do know, like, so kind of some of the earlier when we were speaking and we asked about like how individuals get into that program. It is for the Lakewood one, it is a right-of-way project. So it is not the city of Tacoma. All the individuals are coming from the right-of-way properties. So it's CLR is the ones that will be sending in the referrals for that site as compared to the city.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Joe, and thank you for pulling over. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No worries, anytime.
Okay. Great. Yeah, and Kenneth, you're right. The right-of-way program is the Washington State Department of Transportation. It's a joint project with DOT and Department of Commerce. It's an ongoing funded project. And then the local contractor that is doing the outreach into those sites is Comprehensive Life Resources. All right, so let's shift to an update from Jan about the Safe Sites for All Committee.
What? We don't have safe sites for all yet? We still have to meet? How shocking. Would love to see everybody on Monday at noon, Zoom. Go to our website. We are going to talk about safe parking, all the projects that are currently happening. We're going to talk to, right now there's going to be two parallel systems, and it's going to be confusing to the public. This coalition got a safe parking network established that is run through New Hope, Paula Anderson and New Hope. The city of Tacoma has started and is starting and about to have an open house, an open parking lot event for the City of Tacoma safe parking site. So we'll talk about the two parallel systems. We're going to talk about inclement weather because we are called into action. We've gotten stronger partners with the county, specifically DEM and Human Services. So if you have an opinion, or if you have an answer, or if you have anything to contribute or learn, we want to see you Monday at noon. Register on our coalition site. Thanks.
I think there's plenty of people with opinions here, so it should be a busy meeting. All right, any other committee updates? No? Okay, thanks. I was looking at Rosemary and she knew I was looking at her. She shook her head. So that gives us a little bit of time for some good trouble announcements. Do folks have items that they would like to share with the, wow, we're down to 38 people left in the room.
I can't raise my hand because I can't get my raise hand feature here on my phone. I did want to mention, I know that there was a, it was brought up earlier about nobody can move into the project because the Candlewood is not, or because the Lewin Lakewood is not fully open. So there is rooms available for individuals that they're clearing from the right of way. And there is rooms available. CLR has rooms that they can bring individuals into now immediately because we are renting rooms from another hotel. So we have those rooms available. So there is rooms. I heard it mentioned earlier, they were like that they're put on a wait list to move in later. We don't have the building that we're using, but we are utilizing another room. And so there is definitely there is definitely rooms available right now for individuals being cleared. So I just want to make sure that, and if, anybody has any questions about that, they can definitely go to CLR as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, Joe. Teresa, I see your hand up.
So I have good trouble, but I wanted to say to Joe that people at the site were saying that they are being sent to the stability site where they're going to be in a holding pattern until they find out if they get a space, and that they're being told there's no guarantee that they have a space. So to Jessica's concern, it feels like it's a little cart before horse thing, that some of those things should be worked out before the sweep.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I can reach out to CLR and kind of ask them what is going on with that and why, because we do have rooms available now that are ready for individuals to be brought into. So I'm going to reach out to CLR and kind of ask them, what's going on, because from my end, that's not what I understand.
Okay, yeah, this is in terms of that dashboard, wouldn't it be great if we could all go someplace and find the answers to these things? Yeah. But in terms of good trouble, I do have postcards here. If anybody is doing any kind of outreach, especially today, I posted some in the chat that are some of the ones that came out of the Union Street Loop, and I think they're pretty compelling. So if you have, especially if you know anybody who has a little bit of art going, some images would be great. Lori's going to do something. Lori Davenport, who's our resident. What is she? Is she our artist in resident for the coalition? Anyway, she's going to put something together with these. And so if anybody gets any, please ask people if they're willing to have their postcards shared in addition to being sent to the mayor and the council, because you can drop off. First of all, you can pick up blank postcards here if you like, and I can give you stamps, but I'd really like them to be scanned if people are agreeable to that, so that we can create sort of a living document that has these in them. That was a long, good trouble, but we had a little bit of extra time, so I hogged it. Anyway, I'm putting my email address in the chat one more time.
You're all good, Teresa. If there's one thing that this group can do, it's fill time. Anyone else with some good trouble announcements? Rosemary?
This is probably more of the good news announcement, but Monique put at the beginning of the meeting, some people may have missed, that the auction for FOB Hope raised $5,000. That was good news.
That is good news.
It's great news. We can buy some resources for the village.
Perfect.
And thank you to all on the coalition that came. We loved seeing your faces, and I loved seeing you in person. And thank you to those who didn't come, but donated anyhow. We appreciate your help and your support always.
By the way, that was really fun. So if you didn't make it this year, put it on your calendar for next year.
Anyone else with items they'd like to share with the group? Jan and then Ryan.
Yes, I'm grateful for old bananas that find their way to Timothy's house because he is one heck of a baker. Thank you for those cookies last night, Timothy. It was fun.
Ryan.
House Bill 1377 is it's one of the housing bills that's passed through the Senate yesterday or whatever, and it's going back to the House now to get shored up. So that allows for 2 ADUs per property pretty much everywhere. Tacoma might have an exception, but I thought that was good news. Also, the housing trust is getting budgeted at $400 million, which I guess is more than twice what it was before. So, you know, with the COVID money going away, it's kind of nice to see that the state is stepping up and trying to do something to stop the bleeding.
Yeah, a lot of folks probably saw or heard about the report from the Department of Commerce that there's a need for about 1 million new housing units over the next 20 years to be built. Roughly 60% of those 1 million units need to be for folks at or below 60% AMI, area median income. There I go using acronyms. So there's a huge need for additional housing. And so that's why things like the investment in the housing trust fund are important. Yeah, Ryan.
City Club of Tacoma is putting on a presentation. Basically, we've got the all-star panel of people that you know here. We've got Ken King, Jay Worley, Patricia, and Courtney Love are going to be our panel. So it's a really great opportunity to kind of come in. We're going to talk about the services and systems in place to help people get out of homelessness. And with our lived experience panel, basically give people an opportunity to kind of ask questions, you know, check their assumptions and what they think about how, you know, what the homeless community is, and really kind of put a face on it and humanize it. So if it's something you're interested in or anybody else, City Club Facebook page has got the invite, or you can reach out to me. And I think actually we sent it out to the listserv, the invite. So if it's something you want to participate in, we still have tickets.
Thank you for that reminder, Ryan. And anyone else? We've got a couple minutes still left. All right, we don't have to belabor it. Thank you for dropping the link in the chat for the Facebook page for that event, Kenneth. And thank you to everybody who's still here. I know it's been a wonky meeting today, but appreciate you hanging in. And I hope everybody has a good weekend, and we see you all next Friday. If you have an interest in helping plan upcoming meetings, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to stay in this room to start planning next week's meeting right after this. So thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend. Stay safe.